although today the Latino community represents an important financial, social and cultural engine within the United States, the reality is that the path as immigrants was not always easy for them. Political crises, economic destabilization, and social conflicts are some of the reasons that have forced millions of Latinos throughout history to leave their homes in their countries of origin and go in search of a better future for themselves and their families towards the United States, many of them without the possibility of returning. But what measures does the United States employ to protect Latinos from countries in critical situations? In this video, we will talk about the temporary protected status. The temporary protected status is a provisional aid that the United States to migrants from certain countries in specific circumstances to settle, live and work legally and temporarily. This status was established by Congress in 1990 as part of the Immigration Act. This special designation is granted by the United States Department of Homeland Security. They are responsible for determining which nationalities will receive this benefit. In general, they are nationalities of countries in a dangerous situation for their inhabitants, and it cannot guarantee their safety and integrity. This status grants between 6 and 18 months of protection, and this period can often be extended. But this benefit is not only granted by the Department of Homeland Security but, in many opportunities, it can also be granted by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services to citizens of countries designated as TPS nations. And if you think that only those born and citizens of these TPS nations can be benefited, then the answer is no. If any person whose last place of residence was one of these TPS countries would like to opt for this temporary protected status in the United States, it is valid, regardless of their original nationality. Now, what makes a country qualify for temporary protected status? The social contexts that make a nation eligible for designation as a TPS nation are armed conflicts or civil wars, large-scale natural disasters, epidemics, or other extraordinary circumstances such as political crisis, poverty, or persecution. The countries included in this list to date are Burma, El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Syria, Yemen, or Venezuela. All these nations are currently going through internal conflicts such as political crises, wars, human rights violations that drive their inhabitants to seek refuge in other countries that provide guarantees and security. In the case of Latin America, 4 of its countries belong to this list: Venezuela, Nicaragua, Honduras, and El Salvador, the latter being the country with the highest number of immigrants benefiting from this status in the United States. According to the Pew Center, of the 400,000 migrants who benefited, almost 250,000 are Salvadorans. In 2001, this Central American country went through one of the worst natural disasters in its history. 2 earthquakes that left a total of 315 deaths and 252,622 victims. Since then, the United States has granted this benefit to Salvadoran. While Honduras and Nicaragua have maintained this benefit since 1998 after the passage of Hurricane Mitch through Central America. But, how are the relations between Joe Biden and Nayib Bukele, leaders of the United States and El Salvador, currently? United States President Joe Biden presented an immigration reform plan in the United States Senate in January to benefit some 11 million migrants, including Salvadorans. This project seeks the possibility of giving American citizenship to TPS beneficiaries and the so-called Dreamers in 3 years. However, given the tense relationship between Bukele and the United States, it is not known what could happen to the immigration situation of many Salvadorans. On the other hand, Venezuela is another of the countries considered a TPS nation due to its serious political and social situation, an economy in check, and a compromised human rights situation, just to mention some of its internal conflicts. Representatives of the United Nations and the Organization of American States qualify it as a humanitarian crisis. It has generated a diaspora of its inhabitants, not only to the United States but to the entire world. In the last 10 years, 5 to 6 million Venezuelans have left the country in search of opportunities, guarantees of life, and a better future. And what has the United States said about Venezuela? The almost null and tense relationship between these two nations is no secret to the world. However, on March 8, President Joe Biden granted temporary protected status to Venezuelans who were in the United States by then. It provided Venezuelans with protection against deportation and temporary work permits. Unlike the administration of Donald Trump, who, despite announcing a measure suspending deportations to Venezuelan citizens for 18 months a day before the end of his term, did not include Venezuela within the TPS, I thought at the constant insistence of legislators. Even in 2020, the House of Representatives of Congress approved a bill to grant TPS to Venezuela. This was promoted by legislators from both parties with 272 photos in favor, against 158, but this bill was blocked by the Senate. But if you want to know what makes you eligible to apply for TPS, the first thing you have to know is that this benefit is unique and exclusive for citizens of the mentioned countries. Once this point is clarified, another requirement to be eligible for this status is to have been present within the United States since the most recent date of designation of your country of origin. This modality has the name of CPP. It is also necessary to have continuously resided within the United States since the date specified for your country. Its modality has the name CR. If you want to know the date specified in your country, you have to go to the TPS website directed to your country. Finally, to qualify for the benefit of temporary protected status, you must submit your application in the initial registration or re-registration period, depending on your case. In case of late registration, you must meet the requirements of this type of application to be admitted to any extension of your country's designation to TPS. On the other hand, you will not be eligible for TPS, or you will not be able to maintain it if you have committed a crime within the United States and were convicted. You are considered inadmissible as an immigrant for the corresponding reasons in Section 212 INA. You are related to any of the legal impediments to qualify for asylums, such as the persecution of another person or even terrorism. You do not comply with the requirement to remain and/or reside in the United States continuously and physically. You already have the benefit of the TPS, but you do not re-enroll in it without any cause. Once TPS is granted, it is necessary that you re-register in each new period to be able to maintain TPS benefits. It applies to all beneficiaries by the USCIS, an immigration judge, or BIA. You must bear in mind that this benefit does not guarantee or be related to any legal permanent resident status or any permanent immigration status. Once you are sure you are eligible for TPS, you ask yourself, how can I apply? If you are eligible, you will have to submit Form I-821 that you will find on the official USCIS website. There you can also request the employee authorization using Form I-765. When you make your initial application, you must submit the following requirements: evidence of identity and nationality, evidence of your entry to the U.S. according to the date authorized for your country, and evidence of continued residence. How much does it cost to apply for TPS? According to the USCIS, the TPS application has a value of $50 to date. But in addition, a fee of $85 must also be paid for biometric exams. If work authorization is required, an additional $410 must be paid. In total, the TPS application could have a cost of $545. In the case of minors, the application has a price of $50. So what is the difference between temporary protected status and political asylum? The difference is that the TPS is a law aimed at a group of citizens of specific nationalities who have been suffering a crisis within their countries of origin. Its figure isn't managed individually, and its granting allows residence and authorization to work legally with a guarantee that you will not be deported. On the other hand, political asylum is an individual process granted to expatriates who have fled their countries for political or security reasons. This process applies to people of any nationality that requires it, and each case is studied in a particular way. I have wondered if this grant allows you to apply for a green card. This depends on a very important factor. As we already know, TPS is a temporary benefit, but this does not limit you from being able to file an application for adjustment of status. However, to be eligible for this adjustment, you must have had a legal entry with inspection and authorization from an immigration officer. Last June, the United States Supreme Court ruled against immigrants, stating that the government can prevent non-citizens from applying for a green card if they entered the United States illegally, even if they do have temporary protected status and work permit. In other words, if an immigrant entered the United States without authorization and clandestinely, he is not eligible to apply for the green card. Even though the Joe Biden administration is closer to immigrants than the previous government, there is still a long way to go to achieve the legal regularization of millions of immigrants who entered the nation with irregular status due to socioeconomic conditions of their countries of origin. Meanwhile, TPS continues to represent a new opportunity for many Latinos who aspire to be able to work, study, improve their lives and those of their loved ones. If you've been interested in learning more about Latinos in the US, we invite you to click the subscribe button and activate the bell so YouTube announces you a new video each week. If you want to read more content like this, you can go to our website www.americatino.com, where you'll find articles on entrepreneurship, finance, migration and more. Finally, we ask you, should the United States extend this status to other Latin American countries? We read you in the comments.